everyone. Welcome back to episode 14 of our Movie Mates podcast here, and I'm back here with my co-host Connor Newton, and we're doing a movie that I picked out for this week and called Annihilation. Now, this movie, Connor, I don't really know how to describe this movie other than it's very interesting to me. Now, I had previously seen this movie, before I chose it for this podcast. But I did rewatch it, and when I first watched it, though, I just remember it being super intriguing. It was just very kind of ominous is the wrong word. Just very, I don't know, just very strange in a kind of a cool way. I don't know. Do you have any kind
Yeah.
of thoughts about it?
Well, I mean, I don't actually know how many people saw this movie or knew about this movie when it came out. I think it was 2017 or something like that, or
That sounds right. I know I had
um
heard of it exactly right when it came out. I watched it a little bit after.
yeah, because I was really into going to see movies in the theater in high school. I saw maybe 2 a week pretty much.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean, it wasn't like I had the money for that. It was kind of just I did my best to snoop around the internet and find screenings and passes and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
I remember I went to go see this one with my mom. I think it actually was but it wasn't a screening. We actually went to go see it because my mom was like, "Oh, do you want to see a movie?" I was like, "Sure."
Oh.
And I picked this one out because I thought it looked the most interesting, and it was interesting.
It was.
It's I mean, it's obviously it's the quality, the production quality of a Hollywood movie, but it's not really I don't feel like it's very tailored to the general public. You kind of have to be with a lot of people I feel go to see movies purely for entertainment, and I feel like this movie you have to kind of be more in the mood to kind of focus and
yeah, on your toes in a sense, just kind of being able to keep up with what's happening.
Yeah, it requires a little bit of thinking on the audience's part, which I don't have a problem with. I like those kind of movies,
Yeah, I mean, I personally love those kind of movies. I know, I mean, I've talked to you, multiple times about how I really like Interstellar,
that's what I was gonna say. That's exactly what I was gonna say.
Yeah. Interstellar, Inception, Tenet, just this past fall, all those types of movies I really enjoy because, when I go to see movies, and I don't want to say it's like this for every movie I watch, but a lot of the time I like going into a movie and just having the movie kind of trying to push me in terms of thinking for the plot. I love having to think about the plot, but also being able to understand what's happening, but not have it so obviously laid out. You have to think a little.
Yeah. You want it to be a new experience, and you want to kind of learn something, even if it's subconsciously. You want to come out of the movie feeling a different way than when you went in, basically. Yeah,
100%. So yeah, this movie this definitely fits that. I mean, I don't know if it's it requires as much thinking as those movies, but it definitely requires more thinking than your average movie, without a doubt. I don't know if you want to say anything before we kind of dive into the movie.
So I mean, we can talk more about this movie as a whole kind of at the end if you want, but
yeah, of course.
I was reading as I was watching this movie, I was kind of reading about it too, and I saw that one of the financial backers of the film towards the end of the production wanted a lot of the movie to be recut, redone, sort of, because he thought that it was too intellectual and wouldn't appeal to a mass audience. And he thought that Natalie Portman's character should be made more relatable. Yeah, so the producer said no, I have final say, we'll just keep the movie as it is.
Wow.
And so so this is the version I think that we watched that main financial backer wanted redone because he didn't think it would appeal to a mass audience.
To be fair, I think he might be right. I mean, look, you watch a movie like this, and I feel like the average audience would either not necessarily be bored with it, but really not maybe kind of fully grasp what's going on.
Yeah, they wouldn't be as interested, right?
Yeah.
They probably go rather watch the Marvel movie that maybe came out at that time or something like that.
Yeah, because it doesn't require as much thought, and not all people like having films that make you think like that much.
It's not exactly a fun movie either, but it's super engaging. I mean, I think it was pretty engaging.
I think it's very engaging as well. I mean, this movie, yeah, you're right. It's definitely not a movie that you're going to go and have fun in. I would say there's not a lot of happiness.
Yeah.
Like a lot of just like fun, like jovial like
Hmm.
moments in this movie. But that's not what it's meant to be. This movie's not meant to
No.
be that. So.
Would you consider this a horror film, or because I know it's a
Mm,
sci-fi, right? But is it horror?
see, I don't really think so. I don't really think so. I don't really think so. I thought that this movie kind of teetered on the edge of it was like a sci-fi I thought it was more of like a mystery. Is kind of
Yeah,
the way
it
I thought.
wasn't it wasn't really quite a thriller because it wasn't like thrills, right? It was
Yeah,
kind of more
yeah.
just creepy,
It
you
was more.
know?
I thought it was more mysterious, like mysteriously
Yeah,
creepy. Is kind of like there were definitely some moments that were considered like horror, I guess. But yeah, I think it was
yeah,
more of just kind of a
yeah,
creepy, mysterious movie.
yeah. I mean, but I
Yeah, 100%.
I feel like it doesn't really fit into one genre
No, yeah,
because it had
yeah.
aspects, sort of like scary aspects, but it also had a lot of adventure aspects. But I wouldn't call this an adventure film either. You know what I mean? Like
Mm-mm.
it's not so much about like a physical journey
No, it's
as
not.
so
Yeah,
much as you know what I mean? Yeah.
yeah. It's more. We can get into it, but it's more about like a mental journey. I
Yes.
think
Yeah.
clearly. Yes.
It's a
And
lot about the relationship between physical and mental things as well, which
mm,
you know what I mean?
true, true. I mean, because well, we can get into this. I mean, throughout the whole. Well, how do we want to start this? Do we want to just start by? We can just start off at.
Yeah, yeah. We can
Let's
just
just
start
start
off.
off at the beginning.
Yeah.
And just kind of talk about. I wanted to start by talking about how it starts. So it starts with a flash forward, and you don't know this until obviously the next scene. But I believe it starts with a flash forward, unless
Right. Yeah, yeah, it does. It
yes.
does. And okay,
Hmm.
what do you have to say about the way that it starts with that? Like, how do you feel about the movie starting with that flash forward after she's
I
already escaped the shimmer and she's like survives her
you
whole
know,
experience?
I actually like when movies do this, and sometimes they don't pull it off. Sometimes sure, it doesn't work every time, but I like when they do this because I think it draws you into and be more engaged immediately because right off the bat you kind of realize like something's definitely wrong. I thought it started. I remember writing down that started off in like pretty creepy way. I thought it was pretty creepy. Like she's kind of sitting, in an isolated room talking to a bunch of scientists who are all just kind of staring at her, looking at her, right? So immediately, you think something's wrong. And I remember, she said like I thought I was only in there for a few days, maybe a couple weeks at most, and they're like you were there for 4 months, and you don't know what they're talking about at this moment, but obviously she was somewhere and something
Right.
bad happened. But the point is, like I thought that it did a good job of setting the stage for like kind of like a, what's going on, like it's a mystery. Like you don't know what happened, and you don't know what's
Yeah.
going to happen. I feel like for me, like I wanted to know. I wanted to know what happened.
Yeah, I
So.
think that I think that I did like that scene, like how it opened a lot the
Mhm.
first time I watched it. Because I don't know if we mentioned it, but both Ryan and I have seen this film before.
Mhm.
Maybe we already said that.
I know I mentioned
Uh,
it.
when I watched it the second time, I was actually like, I feel like this is like I don't know because when I watched it the first time, since having not seen the film, this flash
Yep.
forward, right? This could have been somewhere in the middle of the plot. This
Yep.
could have been the very end, which it turned out to be the very end
Yep.
essentially. Um, but you don't really know, and so that's kind of like it's not really. It doesn't really feel like a spoiler to the movie because you don't know how she got there or like what happened and
Mhm.
whatnot. Watching it the second time, I will say I feel like they gave away a little bit too much information with that hook.
You think so?
Yeah, because they're like
Mm.
he asks her about each of her like companions, and
Yes.
she's like, I don't know, they're dead. Like da, da, da,
Like I
da.
don't. She said like one dead, and then the other two or three. She said like I don't know. I
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Which like I don't know. I mean, as soon as you see meet those characters in the movie, you're like, oh, I know that
Yeah.
they're not going to survive. Which I mean, I guess you would kind of have that feeling anyways. But the fact that the movie points it out in the first
Yeah.
scene, I feel like that kind of took away a little bit of the I don't know, a little bit of the
Oh no.
suspense element for
Yeah.
me.
The allure, or in a sense, like
Yeah,
kind of the draw to it. Yeah. I mean, I get that, but the thing for me is like I don't think that, at least from their perspective, and I guess I kind of agree with it, is like the movie wasn't meant to be about like you know, the journey wasn't meant to be about like the
it's not
people
like
like dying. Yeah,
survival
it's
and
not
like
like
yeah,
who's gonna survive, who's gonna die. I think it's more like like you said, it's more about
like
like
what is this? What
yeah,
is this?
what
And what
is
is
it?
her journey in particular?
Yes. Also, like I think there's an element of, and maybe I'm wrong, but there's an element of like uh, mental fortitude or like mentality, the
Yeah,
mentality you have of these people going into
yeah.
this. And we can kind of talk about this. And I guess we can kind of move through the beginning of this movie. And,
Hmm.
basically we start off, and let me kind of say this. Natalie Portman's character's name is Lena, correct?
Yep.
Yeah.
Lena. Yeah.
So her name's Lena, and she's just a biology teacher at Johns Hopkins. And so that's
Former army.
yeah, yes. She met her husband in the army, and that's how we get introduced to her. And evidently her husband was missing or dead, right?
Or
And
dead. Yeah.
that's yeah, and
Yeah.
for over a
On a
year.
mission for the army, essentially.
Yeah, so
Um,
for over a year, and she thought he was dead, and rightfully so. I mean,
mhm.
she had no information. She tried to get information on it, and she couldn't.
Yeah.
But um, but basically, the first kind of suspenseful or major scene in the movie is when her husband shows up at home.
Yeah, just right in the, not even like right at the
Yes.
front door, like right in the room that she's in.
Yeah,
You know
like
what I
and
mean?
that's really creepy. Honestly, like
Yeah.
that's so it kind of adds to that like suspenseful, creepy, mysterious kind of vibe that
Yeah.
you get in
And
this
you have
movie.
that kind of like old like music that's
I
happening
want
at
to
the same
say,
time.
and I know I say this all the time, and I don't want to kind of repeat it too much, but I'm serious when I say like the music in these movies makes such a difference, between like,
Yeah.
an average movie, or not an average movie, but just
Hmm.
like your everyday action movie, and then like
Yeah, no,
movies
yeah.
like this, like it just matched it. I feel like it matched what they were trying to do really well.
Yeah, and I think like especially for a scene like this early
Mm,
one where she's just like painting the house and there's these beautiful shots of like
mm,
where she lives and stuff like that.
yep.
And you have that kind of like it's almost like ethereal almost this music.
Mm,
And then he just kind of walks in there and it's like almost dreamlike when he comes in with the
yep.
music and everything like that.
Yep.
And I think it just sets the tone for the movie like right off the bat, which is important. Like it lets you know like this movie is going to be not a typical blockbuster movie,
Yep.
and
It
you're
also
going to
gonna be.
have to there's going to be questions that need answering, so you need to pay attention. And
Yep.
yeah, and it does it in an artistic way too, which I really appreciated, like how they took the time to.
Well, because right off the
Yeah.
bat, something's wrong. I mean, you can tell, because
Yeah.
you can tell he doesn't have the same kind of emotions that she
Yeah,
does.
because you saw like a little bit of a flashback of them like playing in bed or something like that,
Yep,
and you can tell like his body language is just so different, and
it's
like
so
even
different.
his look.
I wouldn't
Yeah.
even say that he was more lethargic. I mean, I don't even know if that's the right word. It's just like he seemed like a totally different person.
Hmm.
We can get into that, but he just had nothing. He seemed totally different, and she realized that right
Yeah.
away. Obviously,
Yeah.
she was kind of standing there asking him questions. He couldn't answer anything.
Yeah. I did like that conversation too, because that's exactly how, because like her initial reaction is like she's so glad to see him, she just hugs
Yeah,
him, but
yeah.
he has a like weird averse reaction to her
Mhm.
almost. And then that ensuing conversation, like in the at the dinner table, like that's exactly how a real couple would probably interact after that. I mean, I don't know about the, obviously he's an extenuating circumstance, but the like a real life wife
But
would
yes,
have
yeah,
those
oh,
questions and
100%.
be upset like that. And like,
Mhm.
I mean, throughout this movie, I think the conversations are very well done. Like
Mm,
the
I agree.
dialogue is a
Yes,
very
actually,
positive
yes. And
aspect.
there's a few scenes I have in mind about that, and I do agree with that. But this is definitely weird. And then he drank a sip of water, and then there was blood
His
that
blood in it.
came from his
Yeah,
mouth,
yeah,
and she didn't really know what was going on, but she knew something was wrong. So obviously
yeah.
she called
We
an
get an
ambulance. They
ambulance. Yeah.
got an ambulance, and then a high
Can I say
level.
something really quickly before we jump too far ahead?
Yes.
Is that right after the flash forward scene at the very beginning of the movie, we
Mhm.
actually see like that shot of like space with the comet coming,
Yes,
and
I
then
thought you
the
were gonna mention
and
that. Yeah.
yeah, and then it hits the lighthouse, and then we see the shimmer start to build, which kind
Mhm.
of like also lets. I think that's a good like scene that transitions from like the flash forward to like her at the university, because
Yeah.
like um it's like, oh, this is what the movie's about, like this shimmer thing, and we're
Yes.
gonna somehow get our character her to meet up with this phenomenon that's just happened. So I think that was, I don't know, I really like that because
Yeah.
it also looked really cool too. So
It did look very
yeah.
cool. I mean, the visuals are really good in this movie. I
Hmm.
mean, no doubt, like it was definitely top notch in that aspect.
Hmm.
I thought it looked pretty. It looked real, like a lot of what they had in the movie. Um, so I thought they did a really good job with that. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, so they're in the
so
ambulance, right?
yep. And basically, they get taken by, I guess, high level government officials or
Yeah, maybe
military
FBI
members.
possibly
Yeah,
or
we
something
we
like
don't really
that.
get like kind of clear, clarification
Yeah.
on that. But I
Obviously,
mean,
it's some governmental force.
yeah, some military governmental force. But anyway, they get taken to the place or near the place where her husband's mission was, right?
Right.
Which was the Shimmer. So.
And they take him out of the ambulance as he's like having a seizure, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Like they prevent him from getting care because they're so concerned with keeping this under wraps. I feel like.
Yeah, no, 100%. Like they didn't care if he was going to die, and honestly, it provides an interesting kind of perspective, right? Because you want, everyone's like, oh, you should help the guy, like he's messed up, but also like this is such a major thing that if it became public, like imagine the
yeah,
something like that. Yeah,
like he's messed up, but also like, how did he survive? Which is the question that we get into, right? Like,
yeah, and they wanted to know, they didn't know, so yeah, we get into that, right? And then I think Lena wakes up, right? She's there, she's talking to the head psychologist.
Yes, Ventress.
What was her name again?
Her name is Ventress.
Ventress. Yeah, honestly, I'm a lot of the names of these of the side characters, or like the other secondary characters in this movie. Like, they didn't really place a big emphasis on the names in this movie, which
I kind of felt like that too when I watched it the first time, is that I couldn't really remember any of their names afterwards. I even had a little bit of trouble remembering like Natalie Portman's name.
Yeah, it took me a while. I actually remember this movie. I don't think I really got her name until maybe 20 minutes in. I remember like, oh, okay, so that's her name. And then I went back and like wrote it down because I didn't know in the first like little bit of the good portion of the movie.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I don't mind that. I mean, I don't think, it's fine. Yeah, it doesn't.
And I guess that kind of goes back to the point I was making earlier about how they ask her about all of her like I guess teammates, and they're like, what happened to this person? And she's like, oh, that person's dead. That person, I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess because the names are not that important, like it doesn't really come back to you like, oh, these people are gonna die. You kind of forget about it a little bit, but
sure. I mean, I think also this movie's more, about the individual, like kind of not actions, but what happens to each of these people more than like actually like who they are, like, like personally, like their name before this, like all their, everything about them. It was more about kind of like what happened once they got inside of the Shimmer and like. Yeah.
And so, but she has to learn about that first, right? Which is kind of what that conversation with Ventress initially is about.
Yep. And they don't know much about it, right? Like they say like, we don't really know anything. We're kind of throwing theories out there. We've sent people in, we've sent things in, animals in, drones in, everything.
Nothing comes back. Yeah.
Nothing comes back. Yep.
And it's expanding too, right? Which is, I think what that expansion is kind of what gives the movie that sense of urgency, right? Because it's like if it's just sitting there, like who really cares? You know what I mean? Like,
sure. Or at least there's not as much of a sense of urgency, right?
Yeah,
exactly. So yes, you're definitely right. That does provide a sense of urgency. She said, I think like in a few months, this base that we're on is going to be like, it'll have taken this base, or it'll have gotten here.
Yeah. And which is like, in my mind, I'm like, so you just built this entire base,
I know.
even though it's going to be covered up. That's one option. Or option two is you figure out how to stop the Shimmer thing, and then you just have this base out here with no purpose anymore, So.
Yeah, I know. I thought that was kind of funny because like she was saying that in a super nice office, like a super, super modernized, really nice facility. Yeah, I thought that was funny as well. But yeah, that's kind of what happens, right? We get some more flashbacks, I think, of her and her husband. We get, I think, maybe another one, and these are kind of sprinkled throughout the movie. And you learn more about their past like as you go, right?
Which
it definitely is important. I think it definitely is important, and we can talk about kind of
we'll talk about how important that is.
It's very interesting because, and do you want to talk a little bit about it now? I mean, we can talk.
I mean, we can talk about, because obviously like the flash forwards are also incorporated, so you get some flashbacks and some flash forwards, which I didn't think was too confusing. Like you can tell like when it's beforehand because her husband is there, and like when she's getting interviewed afterwards. But I thought a lot of those scenes were important in establishing their relationship.
Yes. Or lack thereof.
Right. Okay. Okay. If we want to talk about this now, we can.
Yeah. I mean,
So like, for example, like that scene where they're talking in bed about like he's like, oh, I zoned out. Like, I'm just looking at the stars or whatever. And then they're talking about like his next mission, and he like says like a cheesy line to her, and she like makes fun of him for it. Like, I thought that was really great dialogue, like really great writing. And it didn't feel to me like their relationship was like strained or anything. Like, it felt like they had a really good marriage.
Yeah,
which would,
but that's the thing, and I wanted to get into that because I think that we're seeing flashbacks that Lena was dreaming of, or at least thinking of when she was thinking of her husband. And I think that's kind of what you got in those flashbacks. So every flashback, for the most part, with the exception of one or two, you know, uh, with one of them that I really am thinking of, where her husband had to leave right for the mission, and he
yeah,
didn't tell her anything, and it was very sad. It was like we had a whole
yeah,
day.
they had a whole day
But
planned
anyway,
and
I
like,
think the point is, I think that this was all kind of all these flashbacks were like encompassed to show that like this is kind of what she was thinking of when she was thinking of like I want my husband to come back alive, or like I want him to be
yeah,
okay and things like that. But in reality, like I remember, I think it was so later on there were other flashbacks where it turned out she was
having an affair, right?
having an affair, but it doesn't really get established when like it happened. Like, was it after he left or
Yeah,
after he died, or what point it was at? But the point being, the guy she was having an affair with mentioned like, you know, you spend more time away from your husband than with him, and I think that
right.
that kind of stuck with me because a lot of these flashbacks make it seem like it's such a great relationship, and it might be, but it's just interesting that it's kind of underscored by the fact that like the harsh reality of like he was away all the time, and it was very hard.
Yeah,
It was very hard. It was very
that's
hard,
true.
right?
And I think, okay, I have a lot to say about this.
Yeah, it's fine. We can talk about, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, obviously, for listeners, like if you haven't seen this movie, it might seem a little bit like obscure what we're talking about. Um,
Yeah.
but basically, when you see those flashback scenes of her like having an affair with this guy, right? He's another professor at the university,
Yeah.
by the way. Yeah. Um, and it feels like there's only one moment that this is happening, but by their dialogue, like you can tell like
It's
it's
happened
happened
before.
before. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then she says like they're not doing it again, like she's made up her mind.
Mm.
But at that point her husband's already gone. Like he might not be like considered dead yet, but he's been gone for some time.
Yeah, a long time.
Yeah. uh and so like I don't know how much of a factor that plays into it, but I think, like, I guess I'm just wondering, Ryan, like what you think about this. Like,
Mm.
what does the like affair aspect like actually add to the movie? Like, how would it be? How is it? Because I feel like the movie would be the same if we didn't have those flashbacks. Like, if we just had the flashbacks of her and her husband. And her
See, I don't
husband
know if
leaving.
I don't know if I agree with that. We can get deeper into this, and this is going to be kind of going to the core of the movie. But I think a lot of the reason it was in there, and a lot of the reason I think it was okay and it should be there, is like I think that was one of the primary drives to what happened to Kane, her husband, is why what happened.
You think that he made the decision to go in there because he found out about it?
No, I think that might have contributed to him going in there. I mean, at the end of the movie when he ends up dying, I think that contributed to him like kind of being okay with it's not the right word. But
Well, I
having
mean, like,
having less drive, or he had a lot of
well, but
drive.
he like his last words were like, "Make sure Lena gets this" or
Yeah.
something like that.
Or no, I think he said like make sure you like go
Find her or
see
something.
Lana, yeah, or
Yeah.
find her. Yes.
Yeah, but also I feel like, I mean, he's been in the Shimmer for like who knows how long, right? So
A long time, yeah. But it could have
yes,
been not that long also.
I guess, but like it took her 4 months. I mean, yeah, it took her
Yes.
4 months to get there. So
yeah, so he was in there for probably at least 8 to 10 months. I mean, like, you
yeah,
can easily assume.
yeah. Well, I mean, because what I was thinking is like he, like how sane is he at that point at the end?
Oh, I
When he
don't think
kills
he's sane
himself?
at all.
Right.
But I don't want to jump ahead too much.
Okay, yeah. We'll go through the movie quickly, and then we can
Yes.
talk about some of the big themes and stuff that we were
Yeah.
just talking about.
Yeah. So basically, they gather a team of scientists, of female
She
scientists.
meets they all kind of have their own thing.
Yeah, it's Lena, and then I think it's 4 other people, I believe,
including Ventress. Yeah.
Yep. So yeah, she goes as well, and we find out the motive for a lot of these people, I think, for going into the Shimmer. But anyway, they end up going in, right? So they end up going in, and it seems pretty easy. Like they just kind of walk in. There wasn't really any resistance. They go in, and they don't really encounter much. I think they were there for a couple.
But next thing you know, like it's a couple days later, and they don't remember the last few days.
Yeah.
So right off the bat, things are like freaky. you know?
Yeah. So it's definitely weird. So one of the things, and this is like time passes very strangely. Like and as you can see that from the flash forwards immediately when she said I was in there for a few like days or a couple weeks maybe, and it was 4 months.
Yeah.
So time definitely passed at like a either it passed differently in the shimmer, but I think it's more likely that it passed differently in their own heads. Like they just kind
Yeah.
of didn't realize what was happening.
Yeah.
Because as they got deeper in, right, and closer to the middle of the shimmer or whatever they were in, things started to get more strange, right? So we got to
Yeah.
start to see some mutations,
We
right?
saw those flowers that were like a bunch of different flowers from the same plant.
Mhm.
Then they run into
Crocodile.
that crocodile, yeah. Which
Yep.
I mean, like obviously action isn't a priority of this film,
Mhm.
but I thought it was kind of weird how like they it's like attacks Tessa Thompson's character, right? By the
Yes,
way, she played a very minor role in this. Tessa Thompson did.
she
Like,
did. Yeah,
um,
she did.
but anyways, it grabs her bag and it's like trying to drag her, and then they have time to go and save her, and they pull her out, and then it takes like another like 30 seconds for the crocodile to like chase them again. Which I don't know. I felt like that was kind of weird. Like that animal would have kept aggressing, like where it had her over there as soon as they like.
Maybe. But like everything in the shimmer acted like it just everything acted strangely in the shimmer,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
But regardless, we get to see Lana, Natalie Portman's character. She ends up killing the crocodile, and you get to see like they really make sure to like show you like that she
She's a
has
soldier.
an army
Yeah.
background. Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think that this is.
I did like that part where it's like that shot that goes into her as she's like firing
Yeah.
and the
Well,
weapons.
Sorry, you go ahead.
I was just gonna say that the
Yeah.
weapons when they fire them, like it feels like they're shooting real weapons. Unlike a lot of movies, like you can feel kind of like the weight in the way they're holding it and like the sounds and stuff that they use.
I wonder if like for some reason the sound of the bullets sounded more meaningful. I don't know if that was kind of the nature of the movie, but you're right. Like it just sounded like more louder maybe or
Yeah,
I agree.
I feel like the word I would use is like heavier. It felt like
Mhm.
like firing this weapon like means something. Like she has the
Mm-hmm. Well, because they didn't really fire weapons a lot in this movie.
no, but when they did, like
Yeah.
it was like, oh, okay, this is happening now,
Yep. No, 100%. But I thought it was cool just because they pointed out like she has like physical fortitude and she also has like mental fortitude. I would
she's
say.
smart and strong and both mentally and physically.
Yep. And I remember them specifically pointing out that they had only sent in armies like soldiers, and now they were only sending in scientists. And you look at who made it out. But anyway, I find that I just found that kind of interesting. But anyway, we get deeper in, right? I think we get to an old army base.
Yeah, they come across their old thing, like totally a waste of capital,
waste of resources,
yeah.
But they get there, so maybe it's not so useless, right? Or you think, but they get there, and it gets it gets weirder. I mean, it just
they see that video, right? They watch that video.
Yes, there's a video of her husband, who no one else knows, by the way, except for the head psychiatrist who's there.
Yes,
Adventures.
Yeah, and he cuts a guy's stomach open, and his like intestines are moving.
Oh, I kept thinking they would cut away from that, and they just didn't. Like they just made you watch the whole thing.
No, I was thinking that there was going to be an animal inside of him, like an alien or something. When there's like chest bursters or something.
I mean, what was that like?
Well, I mean, maybe it was just well, I mean, as we discover,
yes,
we can just talk about this now. Like the way what the shimmer does is it refracts everything, right?
It does.
That's what.
And they did a really good job of explaining it, by the way. Tessa Thompson's character explains it, right? She explains how it's kind of like it refracts, like DNA, right? Yeah. Everything that's in it. So plants, DNA of plants, animals, everything.
Which is so like, I'm not going to say that wasn't like, it's not like a completely different organism that was in him, but it's not exactly him either, right? It's like the DNA of a bunch of different stuff.
Well, it's not him. It's like if you, it's just like if you make something totally new. I think it's just totally.
But it's not separate from him either. Like it's a part of him, but it's like he's changing. Is almost what's happening is essentially.
Sure. It was kind of crazy how quickly we see the changes. So we see this whole video and they're clearly shaken, and I feel like I don't want to harp on this too much, but Ventures, right? She seemed very off to me, kind of right, like
Kind
at
of
that moment.
calm, very calm.
At that moment, but like
Mhm.
through the rest of the movie, from that point on, like she really didn't have any emotion. Like it was very, she just seemed kind of like, nah,
Yeah,
like I don't know. She just seemed very, I don't even want to say deadpan, but that kind of seemed like to me,
I think
how
that
she was
they,
like.
I don't want to say forgot about, but like they did not put as much time into like exploring the other characters because they were so focused on Lena's character, right?
Maybe, but I actually think they did a decent job with Venture's character, and I'll tell you like I'll explain why, and we'll jump to that the scene that I want to talk about next because we have a quick thing to discuss, which
Yeah,
is
well, I was just gonna say, I don't know if this
yeah,
is what you're gonna say,
no,
but
it's okay, yeah,
they
go
go
ahead.
down to the pool and they like see the guy's body
Mhm.
like all across the wall and stuff.
Clearly, the guy from
That
the video.
yeah,
Yeah.
and that's something that you like I don't think you see anything like that in any other movie. You know what I
No,
mean? Like,
yeah,
and
and they did a really good job again. Like I keep saying it, but it looked it looked real in
yeah,
a
no,
weird
it
way.
did. And I think that that just kind of emphasizes like just like they knew there's like mutations and weird stuff going on, but then I think that's the moment that they realized like we're like in it. Like
Yeah,
this
like
is really dangerous,
something's
you
really
know?
wrong. Yeah.
Yeah.
And was that the first moment, or was it not quite? That was not. It was around that time when one of the characters asked if they could go back. It was shortly thereafter, I think. Like
Oh
if
yeah,
we
okay,
had
well,
enough data
because
to go back.
well, yeah, what happened was initially when they saw the video and stuff, Tessa Thompson's character got really freaked out.
Yes.
And then that other woman, she was like trying to comfort her and stuff like that. But then at night, that one girl, well, they
Shepherd.
were
Yeah.
like, yeah, she got taken by the bear thing and she got eaten.
Yep. Yep.
Um,
So that was okay. So she's dead. And then
yeah, yeah. I was
Lena
actually
goes and
disappointed by that scene in the movie because I was like, oh, you're just gonna have her disappear into the darkness and that's it. Like,
yeah. I mean,
um,
I agree, but I think it was kind of the catalyst for the stuff for a bunch of other things,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
So
because that's why they were like, oh, let's turn back. We've lost somebody.
yeah, so
Everything.
that's what happens there. And Lena goes and makes sure she's dead. She finds her body. She's dead.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, and I think her going alone is actually important.
it's very
I don't know
important.
why she said she didn't go alone, but it was
Uh,
important to the plot later. But
it was. I don't know. I think she just thought she'd be more effective doing it by herself. I'm not really sure.
yeah, yeah, but I think that's when Anya starts to get really suspicious of her.
Oh, is that her name? Anya?
Obviously,
Okay, yeah.
yeah, but I mean, obviously, it's like not exactly Anya. It's like the shimmer affecting her mind
Well,
too and
yeah,
stuff.
but so
But
we can talk about that. So we right, it definitely start. You can definitely see it affecting them. And when Tessa Thompson
oh yeah,
tells
she's
them,
like they're like walking next to her, and she's like, don't talk to me, or like get the
yeah,
f away from me or something. I don't
yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah. I mean, she was mad. She was mad, and you could see like heightened
Mhm.
emotions or like kind of irrational uh, thought processes kind of
Behavior,
started to
yeah.
yeah.
Which I thought it was. I'm sorry that I keep interrupting you, but
That's okay. Don't worry
I
about it.
was just gonna say that I thought it was interesting that Anya is the one who kind of becomes like really paranoid
Mm,
and kind of like antagonistic almost when she was the one that they made go befriend Lena at the very beginning when they met her. Like she
yeah,
was the one that was like, "Oh, you go befriend her," like because she was like the friendly one, you know. I just
yeah.
thought that was interesting.
I do think that's interesting as well. I don't know, but I do know that as you get further on, right, and Tessa Thompson's character tells them about how the light, her theory, and her theory proved to be right,
Yeah,
that
she figures it out.
or
Yeah.
like the DNA was getting like kind of refracted and kind of just evolving. It might be the right word, mutating. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it- you know, and it made me realize, something very interesting, and I think the movie did it on purpose when they first talk about the mutations, and it was a little before this, so I'm sorry if I'm jumping back, but when they first realized, okay, these are mutations, Lena's character specifically said, like, it's a tumor. And
Yeah.
I found that very interesting because at the beginning of the movie, she's teaching her class about a tumor.
Yeah, it's very thematic. It's very.
Yeah, in
Mhm.
like a 35-year-old, which probably like is around her age, but it was just kind of interesting having that sort of uh, symmetry or
Yeah.
similarity from one
No,
point to
yeah.
another.
That's true. And like I mean, the fact that her character
Mm,
is a biologist plus a soldier, like it's very convenient for the plot. But I
it
mean, like
is.
that's just how it is, right? Like
Yeah, I mean, like there's definitely those out there in the military, and then now they're in biology. I mean, I don't
Yeah,
know.
no, but
There's
like the
those
fact
out
that
there,
she's
but
like what she's teaching like coincides so well with what they end up
yes.
learning about this, I think.
Yeah, sure. I mean, you're definitely right about that. But
Mhm.
right, so we get to this next point, and you see
Like an old house sort of.
yeah, I don't really know what it was. I guess it was some abandoned house, I guess, from someone
Mhm.
who used to live there. And you can kind of start to get a little tense, I think, when it sunsets, it gets a little eerie when it gets dark.
Yeah.
And clearly Lena can't sleep. She looks at her DNA or whatever, her
Her
cells.
her blood basically.
Yeah, she looks at her
Yeah.
blood and she sees her cells and they're starting to mutate,
Mutate, yeah.
split apart, multiply. And she like, obviously like it freaks her out a little bit, right?
Yeah.
And rightfully so. But this is where it gets strange, right? Shortly thereafter, what was this girl's name? You had her
Anya.
name, Anya.
Yeah.
She really
Well,
starts.
before they went to bed, she was like looking at her hands kind of weirdly too. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and then she really starts to lose it here, though, right? She knocks out Lena
Yeah.
after basically saying like she's like doesn't
Yeah.
trust her, she's lying or whatever. But
Yeah.
anyway, she knocks
And
her
it's
out
because she found her locket, right? And her locket has a
Yeah.
picture
of Kane, her
of
husband.
Kane, who they saw in the video. So she recognizes that, right? So,
Yeah, and she knocks them all out anyway, and they're all tied up. And I think this actress did a really good job in the scene. I think she did a really good job, just portraying like the sort of like losing sanity type thing. Like she even acknowledged like there were two theories, like
oh yeah.
they all got killed
Yeah.
or they killed each other because they went insane. And she's like, uh, it was just kind of funny that she straight acknowledged it, not really realizing.
Yeah, and she did say something like, "Or you think I'm losing it, and theory 2 is as accurate, and we're about to like fight each other or something."
Yeah, it was really strange, but I think she did a really good job in that whole scene. And yeah, I just thought it was really well done. So I thought that was interesting, but I don't know if you have any thoughts on what happened there.
Yeah, so I thought it was a pretty well done, pretty suspenseful scene. I thought it was a little bit weird that she tied up Tessa Thompson as well.
I thought it was. It's very weird. It's very irrational, but that's kind of like how.
Yeah, but then like
Right.
also like when she hears like the voice coming from that bear of the other.
Yeah.
Oh, I forget what her name is.
Shepherd.
Shepherd, right? When she hears Shepherd's voice coming from that bear, she's like so concerned immediately, and she just like leaves the room trying to find her, which I thought was interesting that she like seems to care so much for Shepherd.
Yeah.
Given how she was treating the rest of them in that moment. Yeah. And I guess that also goes to show that irrationality as well. But
yes.
Yeah. I just felt bad really for Tessa Thompson's character because she had nothing really to do with it.
Yeah.
And maybe it's just because I like Tessa Thompson and other things, but I was always like rooting for her,
Yeah, no, I was too. I think I really like her as well. But I thought this was interesting, and especially when they made the point, I forget who said it. Someone said it that they thought that, when Shepherd had died to the bear, like she had kind of like part of her had kind of like molded into the bear or something.
Like like because the
like
DNA,
it was a part of her
reflection and like I thought that was interesting as well.
It was Tessa Thompson's character who said that because it led into a scene after that, shortly thereafter, that we can go into. But I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah.
Like so it wasn't like a random like, oh, the bear like all of a sudden can talk like other, because it didn't do that before. Like it provided a sort of like irrational but rational explanation,
explanation
from what's going on in the Shimmer.
And then I liked how she kind of had a little bit of redemption, and she tried to kill the bear, Anya, that is.
Yeah.
And then it destroys her, like it's pretty graphic actually.
Yeah.
Like rips her face off.
Yeah, it was completely destroyed her.
Yeah. And then Tessa Thompson like saves Lena when the bear's attacking her. But
yeah. But then
I thought it was interesting that Anya brought up the point. She's like, "Did you kill Shepherd?" Like that's how irrational her thinking was. But like it was spurred on.
She's like, "You went alone, right? Like, did you kill her?"
Yeah. So it was spurred on by moments like that, which was well thought out by the screenwriters, I thought. So
it's just like, only you two saw the bear. Like, how do we know that she was actually? Yeah, exactly. So I thought that was, you're definitely right. That was well thought out and well done.
Yeah.
But we get to move on to, it starts to move. I wouldn't say faster, but faster is the wrong word, but it
it gets to the point, I guess.
You're getting deeper and deeper into,
or like the more you start to learn, the more you learn. I don't know. Wait, no.
Well,
you know what I mean?
No, it's once you start to learn, you begin to learn more and more. Like it's kind of, So you kind of fall deeper down the rabbit hole, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, do we want to talk about the scene with where Tessa Thompson's
Yeah,
character
yeah, I
leaves
think so.
them basically?
Well,
Um,
like she basically just dies.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't know if she dies because I don't know like
She does. She did though, didn't she?
well, I mean, like, what is death? You know,
But she
like
became a plant.
yeah, but a plant is living.
Okay, true, but she
Like
doesn't.
her DNA is still in it,
She no longer has a mind.
I guess.
But yeah,
Yeah.
she's still alive, I suppose. But anyway, so it's very strange how each of these different characters are so different. The side characters and the secondary characters. So
Hmm.
Tessa Thompson's character, she's kind of sitting with Lena, and she just kind of starts rambling on, and you knew something. You could tell something was off, like when she was like
Yeah.
messing with the plants. Like it just looked weird.
Yeah.
Which
I
I
thought
guess,
that was a really good
yeah,
dialogue scene as well. I thought their conversation was really well done.
yeah, I agree. But because you can tell something's off, but you're not really sure what, and then
Yeah.
and I'll get to the theme at the end, but you see her like, and you can see scars on her arm from, and I remember them mentioning like she wanted to cover them up, but now like they were kind of just
They're just
there.
free. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's because she's like had this realization, I guess, almost.
Realization that she doesn't, uh, like she doesn't really care. Like she doesn't really care.
Yeah.
She's kind of at, seemed like she's very at peace.
Yeah, it's not like
This is
she
what it
doesn't
wants.
need to know what's going on with the lighthouse. She doesn't really
She doesn't care. She just is like,
I
she
feel
just
like yeah, I feel like she doesn't think that what's going on, like
matters.
the inherent nature of like the refraction and whatnot is necessarily bad. It's more like things that are happening because of it are bad. Like she doesn't want to end up dying like she's seen her teammates die.
Friends.
So
Yeah.
she's gonna like yeah. So
Mhm.
she'd rather just kind of like give herself up to the
Yes.
which I thought was
Yes.
interesting, which is like so like can she make that choice? Like does her decision making affect the physical nature of like her DNA melding with the
Yeah, it does.
environment?
Yes,
You know
yes,
what I mean?
and that's what I want to kind of get into at the end, with kind of a theme that I saw, or at least that I think I saw, or that like through this movie. But yeah, so she kind of just she ends up turning into a plant, and that's kind of that. So it was very
Yeah.
peaceful ending, which is a good contrast to a lot of what the rest of this movie had with the endings of these other characters. I thought
Yeah.
it was very
Yeah.
interesting, right? It was a
When
unique.
I first, I actually, when I first watched the film, 2 or 3 years ago, I thought to myself, like, wow, like that's super sad. Like that was the one of the most sad parts for me is that she just
Mhm.
decided to turn into a plant or like give
Yeah.
up basically. And I
Yes.
was like, wow, I would never do that. But
Yeah.
watching it now, I'm like, I actually kind of understand her point of view. And
Hmm.
like,
That's very interesting.
yeah, and I mean, I'm not saying like like I want to like give up on life or anything.
Yeah, I
I'm
know, I know.
no, I'm just saying that like in that situation, given that it's like such a fascinating and unique scenario that
Mm.
she's in, like I could see someone making that decision and being at peace with it, and I'm okay that that character decided to do that, if that makes sense.
Yes, no, 100%, and I'm definitely okay with it as well because it provides another perspective on what was happening. Because again, a lot of them died in violent, kind of crazy, insanity ways, and she didn't. I mean, one could argue she lost her sanity.
Yeah,
So it depends on your perspective. From Lena's perspective, she certainly did. I mean, right? And I think Lena's perspective is very important here because she's the perspective of the majority of the audience.
right. She's the protagonist, right? She
Right? It,
makes and one thing I want to point out is that
mhm.
she's a very good protagonist, at least from a storytelling perspective. Like she makes choices that drive the plot along.
Yes.
You
And the
know?
thing is, though, she also makes choices that the audience member not necessarily would make, but would want to think that they would make. Does that make sense? So
Yes.
like she
Yes.
does what, like, oh yeah, like I would do that, like I'd keep
Yeah.
going. I don't want to see what's in the lighthouse. I want to do it for, she was doing it for her husband, clearly. I mean,
Yeah. But
definitely
was she doing it for her
for
husband or was she doing it for herself?
That's interesting. And it's all, but then the answer is does it really matter at the
Right.
end? And we can talk about that. But
Yeah.
anyway, it gets a lot more quiet after this. And Lena kind of,
Yeah.
uh,
I mean, she's by herself because Ventress has left during the night. Right. So,
and I'm glad they didn't do any unnecessary action kind of in the middle here. It was kind of just watching her slowly make her way with a few flash forwards, kind of
mhm.
continuing to explain what she's doing or had done, and flashbacks with the affair that was going on around this time
Yeah.
as she was getting there. But anyway, she gets closer to the lighthouse, and eventually, you see the lighthouse. By the
Yeah,
way, we should note
and
that Ventures had gone ahead. By the way, we failed to mention.
yeah. I did mention that she left during
Oh,
the
you did?
night
Yeah. Okay.
because she said like I have to get there. I have no time, basically.
Yeah. So, but anyway,
Um,
that's what happened, and she gets the lighthouse, right? She got there.
mhm.
And I want to say before we delve into this, like kind of last act, last scene ish kind of thing, I thought they did this really well. Like this whole last sequence is very strange. There was
Yeah,
one decision I thought was weird,
I thought that it was
but
very excellent, and at the same time, a little bit. There were a couple choices that I think they could have made better decisions, but um,
yeah, no, I agree. There's a couple things like
yeah,
I don't know. We can kind of get into it. I thought
yeah.
that
I mean,
it started off really well. I thought.
yeah. She walks in, right? And what I thought was interesting is like when I walk into a lighthouse, the first thing I want to do is climb it. And she didn't do that. And I was like, no, climb the lighthouse. Like that's what you're there for. But I mean, there was that hole in the ground, which I guess is more interesting. But if I were there, I would have climbed the stairs first. All right, just saying.
Yeah, hey, but that I guess that hole in the side of it was a little too weird, or on the ground was a little too weird. But it starts off very, very. I thought it was very good. Because it starts off by she sees
The video,
a
right?
body. She sees a
Oh
body.
yeah, she sees the body. Yeah.
She sees the video camera. I thought it was really funny that the camera was still working, which kind of makes me think like, how long ago was that? Like, how long ago did
Yeah.
this happen? And my thought is maybe like it didn't happen very long ago. Maybe it really didn't.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. As long as as long as the memory card was still there, if she had a battery, it wouldn't be a big
Yeah,
deal.
but anyway, she watches the video and it's very. I mean, it's what's coming. It's very. It's actually kind of. I thought it was quite sad,
Mhm.
watching the video because he just kind of he sits down, he
Yeah.
starts talking about how he's losing it both physically and mentally, and he just blows himself up.
Yep.
And you hear one time a voice. They're like, "Does that sound? That sounds like him." And then you end up
Yes.
seeing him, Kane, her husband, walk in front of the
After
camera
he's killed
after
himself
he just killed
with the
himself.
body, right? So it's like not a trick or anything. Like you see
No,
the
it's
body.
there. Yeah, and you see
Yeah.
the grenade was in his lap as well. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I also wanted to say that I think that his speech there was one of the most important parts of the movie.
Mm.
Or at least I think that it covers a lot of the themes that this movie's about and what he's talking about.
Yeah, I mean, why do you think
Well,
that?
because he says like he thought he was a man, but he's not sure. And like people used to call him Kane, like, and if he's not Kane, what is he? Like, is he you? Like, are you him?
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of like, I mean, we can get into this later, but I just think those are very important words as to like what this movie is about.
Yeah, we can get in just a minute as we wrap up
Yeah.
this final scene. But anyway, it was very interesting because now you know that like whoever went to her house isn't Kane, isn't her
It's
husband.
not her husband, right?
It's most definitely not. Her husband died.
Yeah.
And you can see that right there. But it was very sad. And I want to, before we move on, like I really liked how this movie, both in the video of the husband cutting open that guy's stomach and a lot of other instances, this instance as well, when he blew himself up, they didn't cut away. And like, you know what I mean? Like they kept it there and you knew it was going to happen. He said like,
Right.
he counted down too. Like he's like 5, 4, and you knew it was going to happen and they didn't cut away. They showed it. I thought that was, I don't see that. You don't see that very often in movies.
Yeah.
Like this.
And I don't feel like it was gratuitous either, right? Like
Yeah, exactly.
It wasn't there for no reason, and it wasn't overly like I don't know what the word is.
Wasn't overly
explicit. It wasn't overly explicit, yeah, or graphic.
Yeah.
Even though it was graphic at some points, like they were showing it to you because they were trying to emphasize something, right? They're trying to emphasize this is what's happening.
Well, they're trying to emphasize how like real this
how
is, like,
real it is, yeah.
And I like that about this movie a lot. How just it felt very real, both physically and mentally throughout this movie. But anyway, you see this happen. She sees it. She's obviously traumatized. But then she goes down that hole, and she goes down and she sees Ventures, and you immediately see like something's really, really obviously.
What was up with her eyes? Did she have eyes still?
Not when we first saw her. It was just a kind of a grayish black face, and then she turns around. And she's immediately like normal.
Yeah, I thought that was weird.
Was really weird. Yeah, it was really weird. But she was obviously very messed up. She was talking to herself. I don't know what she was saying. She was just kind of talking to herself.
It seemed like she was maybe communicating with the Shimmer in some capacity. Like she didn't really understand it, but when she talked,
it was inside of her.
Yeah, when she talked to Lena, she was like, "I understand what it's doing," sort of. Not so much like its intentions or like she actually had a conversation with it, but more just like.
Is she the one who said Annihilation?
Yeah.
Yeah, she was.
Yeah. So like instead of me saying like a word to you, like a sentence, it's like if I could share like my how I'm feeling. I feel like that's how, like
Yes.
with another person.
Yes. Yeah. No, I understand. Yeah. No, I think you're definitely right about that. But anyway, I guess she dies. Like it kind of just
I
consumes
thought that
her.
part was kind of silly. I was like,
It
what the
was.
heck?
Yeah. That,
Yeah.
that might have been the silliest part of the movie, in
Yeah.
my opinion. It was just like you could take that out, and it didn't need it at all, in my opinion.
Yeah. You could just have her like, I don't know, something else. I don't know.
You could have had the Shimmer be her and then turn into Lena instead of kind of, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like more
Or
from one
like
to the
instead
other.
of, mm-hmm,
Yes.
she could have like become part of like, you could have had that thing already that like that she faces, and then
Hmm.
have her kind of like melt into it or something like that. I don't know. Like it
Yes.
consumes her almost. I don't know.
But anyway, it becomes this thing, this kind of a more amorphous, like not really. It's nothing. It's just like it's the shape of a human, but it's not anything really.
It's like an android but made out of like, I don't know if it's organic material, but like,
Yeah, it is organic material, but shimmer. It was the shimmer material, whatever.
yeah, yeah, but it's a person.
Yes,
It's a faceless
it's
person.
it's in the shape of a person, yeah.
Hmm.
And it mirrors Lena's movements
Hmm.
for the most part.
Hmm.
For the most part, it was a very strange sequence. Um,
She hits it and it hits her.
yeah, and then she tries to
Um,
escape, and it follows her and traps her against the door,
yeah.
knocks her out. She and then mimics her again. At this point, Lena realizes it's mimicking her. At this point, I don't think she had realized quite until then, but she realizes at this point when she's getting up, she kind of tested it out, um,
Yeah.
and she tried to whack it with the camera stand.
Hmm.
But yeah, she seems to realize at this point, and then she
Do you
gets up.
think?
Sorry, I was just gonna finish. Like she
Oh
gets up.
yeah, finish narrating the scene a
Yeah,
little bit.
She
Set
gets
it
up
up.
she gets up the last time, and then it changes into her to
Hmm.
mirror her, right?
Hmm.
And then it was very strange. Like Lena grabs the grenade that her husband used and puts
Or
it,
a grenade,
or
not
a
necessarily
grenade.
the
I
one.
guess
Yeah.
there could have been multiple, but she picks up one and like pulls the pin and runs.
Yeah.
The thing gets destroyed by it, and the whole thing burns down.
Hmm.
Proceedingly, everything burns down.
Hmm.
And it's a very strange ending. So you know that Lena herself is alive. The body of
Yes.
Lena is alive. And she escapes and everything burns down. That's that. And that's why. And then it goes to the present, which was the flash forwards at the beginning. And she's in
Hmm.
the talking to the
It's when she's getting
scientists.
questioned and
Yeah. And, I thought something very interesting happened. And she's talking to them. And I thought they wouldn't believe her, but they actually kind of believed her. I thought they wouldn't
hmm
believe her. But anyway, they believe her. And she takes a sip of water, just like her husband did. Um, and there was no blood from her mouth into the water, which
hmm
she was definitely looking for. She was definitely looking for that, I think, when she drank
yeah,
that water.
yeah,
Because she wasn't sure, like, am I me?
yes.
And it ends basically, right, with her talking to
Her
her
husband now
husband,
recovered, or her husband,
who
fake
she
Kane, not
knows it's
really.
not. She says, like, you're not my husband. And
And he says, "I don't think so."
he said,
And
I don't think so.
he doesn't really know much, right? Like he's not like
It's not like he has the memories
super
or thoughts
aware.
of her husband, right? Like, yeah.
Yeah, but he does. Like he knows, like he recognizes her face. So like he
Yeah.
has some aspect of Kane in him, right?
Mhm.
But he doesn't have like the
The explicit
complexity.
memories and yeah. It seems
Yeah,
like he's very
he's like almost a shadow of Kane, sort of, I guess.
yeah, it's a very simplistic version. Just
Yes.
very hollow in a word, I think.
Yes.
But anyway, it ends with he's like, "Are you Lena?" And she didn't
She
answer.
doesn't answer. Yeah. And then they hug each other and
And you
like
see
they show
their
their
eyes.
eyes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so basically, I think it ends. And look, do you want to say like anything, like any overarching themes or how this, anything at the end here that you wanted to like point out? Because I know we both
Well,
had
there's a
some
lot of
ideas.
stuff I want to talk. So
There
just go
is.
ahead and say what you were gonna say,
Are you
first
sure?
of all. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so first of all, the question that I want to tackle before we go to the final part, which is kind of what we thought the theme or themes were of this movie, are like,
Yeah.
was Lena at
Yeah.
the end? And I remember
Yeah.
watching this first time and I wasn't sure. And I think that it's pretty clear that physically it's Lena.
Yes,
it's clear. Yeah,
I
it's
would agree. I
clear.
would agree.
But mentally, I I don't think she's anything like she's like her husband's mentality before he blew himself up is kind of her mentality now. She's like, am I
Yeah,
Lena? Am I you? Am I who am she doesn't really
yeah, yeah,
know.
yeah.
And I think that the shimmer kind of rubbed that off on her. She got mutated. I don't know. It's a very simplistic word terminology I'm using, but basically she became something that she's not explicitly in her mind like Lena anymore. So it's a very
Yeah,
strange, yeah,
yeah.
very strange.
No, I think that that's totally on board with what the film was going for.
Mm-hmm.
I will say that I think she's more the person that she was originally than Kane is than
Oh,
this
100%. She's mostly herself. She just doubts it, I think.
Yeah, yeah, because also like she can remember what
Yeah.
happened
And
in the Shimmer.
she doesn't have the same monotonous like kind of
Yeah,
like
she's definitely
tone
more human-like for sure,
because
and she's still
she is actually her, right? Because Kane
yeah, she
isn't
is
actually
actually
Kane. Yeah.
no, yeah, that's absolutely right,
So
and
yes.
yeah, I think that she is her, but something has changed about her. And the eye thing, even though they both have those shimmering eyes, that doesn't mean like it's not
Yeah.
her, it's like an
Yeah.
alien. It just
Yeah.
means like she has been in the shimmer and it's like changed
It's
her.
changed her. Yes.
Yeah. And I think that is one of the biggest themes of this film is change.
Mm. Okay.
Um,
Okay.
I think there are a lot of themes.
I do as well. I think there are a lot.
But basically I remember her saying something about like how I think it was during like the interview. I don't remember if it was on a flash forward or something like that. But she said that the shimmer wasn't destroying things; it was changing them, or something like that.
Mm.
Do you remember when she
She
said
said that
that?
at the end. It was after. It was actually after the flash. It was when it went to the present, which was in the flash forwards from the whole movie. She said it said like the doctor was like, who was I believe he was in Doctor Strange, right?
Yes, he
But
is.
anyway,
He is in Doctor
yeah,
Strange.
yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, he said like it was going to destroy everything in its path, or it was going, And she's
Mm-hmm.
like, no, it was just changing things,
Right. Right.
right?
And
And it was just a change in mentality,
yeah, yeah, for her.
a clear
And
shift.
yeah, and I think that this movie explored change a lot, right? Like the characters, they all changed when they went in, at least to some degree.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Now for the better, that
yeah, I mean, like, and then here's the thing, right? Like,
most of them know. Most of them know.
right, right.
Not for
But
them.
but like I think what it wants you to think about is like who's to say whether change is for better or for worse, right? Like especially for something like those flowers, right? Is it bad necessarily that those flowers were mutated to like grow different ways? You know what I mean? Like
No.
um
It's also perspective, right?
yeah.
It kind of goes along with
Yeah.
that. Perspective is
Is
key.
it bad? Yeah, like from Tessa Thompson's character's perspective, like she changed into a plant and like that was
Mhm.
like ideal for her, I guess, in the
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah.
Um
And this movie is very interesting because I think there's different themes based on your mentality or mindset, which is kind of what it was going for in terms of like mentality
yeah.
and mental. I thought of it as this movie had a big theme of drive, of motivation.
Mm, mm.
Is kind of one of the main things I took away from it. And it was
Yeah.
because there was a lack thereof of everybody that had gone in, of
Mm,
everybody that had gone in. Everyone that
mm.
had gone in, at least from what we saw, lacked drive or the motivation to push through, to push forward, to push
Perhaps.
to come back.
Perhaps.
None of them had enough drive
Right.
to continue on. They just got tired. They all got
Yeah, so
tired.
so we can talk about Lena's motivation a little bit,
Yes.
which
And here's the thing is I think that it's all perspective because from our perspective, her motivation could be doubted. Like, did she do it for her husband? Like,
yeah,
or was it warranted that she did it for her husband because her marriage was so like it was good on the it looked good, but again, like they also had like she had an affair, like, like
yeah,
she,
yeah, no, that's
right?
true. And like because here's what I think, right? Is that so I'm trying to think of what exactly I want to say.
Yeah, of
I
course.
think what I was gonna say is that like she says to
Mm.
man, I want to call him by his Doctor Strange name, but like
Yes, the scientist,
whatever.
the doctor,
Yeah, yeah. She
yes.
says to him, he says like, why did you decide to go in there? You knew no one had ever come out. And she's like, I owed it to him, like owed it to her husband.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that she's not necessarily going in there to try to save his life. She's going in there because she knows she did something
wrong,
like wrong, right? She had an affair,
and she wants to.
And I think that haunts her.
It.
I think that haunts her.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the affair. Okay, I don't want to like get too many thoughts jumbled up, but there's 2 points that I want to make. Yes. Number 1 is I think that a lot of her drive wasn't necessarily like saving her husband, but like doing something for her husband or like for him because she knew that she had failed him in that area of their life, right?
100%,
in their marriage. And I think that was a large part of her motivation that they don't directly address, but that's kind of what I got. And I like that was that character complexity to her.
Yep.
Which is why I don't have a problem in the end with the affair scenes.
Yeah, see, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My second point is that I think that the another thing that the affair scenes brought to the table is obviously she decided to have an affair, right? That was a choice she made. Mm-hmm. I don't know what, we don't know why, but you know, she obviously wasn't satisfied that her husband was always away or something like that, right?
And when the guy she was having an affair with pointed it out, she didn't like that.
Yeah. And I think that she saw herself, or the people saw her even as like this person with like a perfect marriage, right? Or like there's like this happy couple there, like one's a professor at Johns Hopkins, the other's like in the military, like
high-ranking ops. Yeah,
great. Yeah. But the way that she saw herself and her identity was a little bit different, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that she kind of lost a little bit of that identity, but through having an affair, she's like, who am I now? I'm just cheating on my husband. Yep. And I wanted to just point out that I think identity is another big theme, right? Like,
yes, you can. Yeah, 100%. Because you look at these. I'm sorry to kind of piggyback off your point.
Yeah.
But these other characters, and it goes along with what I said about drive, about motivation, is that you look at each of these.
Yeah, it goes hand in hand.
Female characters. You know, what did they? You know, they had nothing. Like they didn't have anything there for them. Like Tessa Thompson's character was. She was already in a bad mental state, at least in the past, right? Clearly. And so she went in kind of resigned, and it kind of what the movie, or what the Shimmer did, is kind of drive their already present mindset or emotions to an extreme. So, you know, she kind of just resigned to the fact she was okay with it. She was okay with and peaceful, right? Yeah.
And I think that also goes with like the idea of identity, right? Because she's like,
what was her identity?
Right. Like, and her identity kind of becomes part of this Shimmer,
and
she's
all
okay
these characters
with that, right? She doesn't care that identity
lacked identity at the end.
Yeah. And you see that even with Anya's character, who goes crazy. She's like, she's like not the same person she was initially, right? Like she's not the friendly Anya who goes to make friends with. She's like something else.
Yep. And I forget off the top of my head what her backstory was. I think we got something, but I don't remember.
Yeah, she shoot, what was it?
I can't.
Was she like an addict or something like that?
Maybe, it's possible, but whatever it was, I'm sure it kind of pointed towards a sort of kind of paranoia or you know, anger, or something like that. Because I really think that the Shimmer kind of overemphasized their already existing mental like thoughts and
I mean, it reflects it back at themselves, I think, right? And,
it did it with Ventures as well, because she had cancer. She was kind of done with everything. She was like, like she didn't expect to come out alive, and she knew she was going to die, and she wanted to kind of just go on towards that. Like,
I think she was satisfied with that, what she found out. At least I think
she was going towards death, and she wanted to see what was in the lighthouse, and she accomplished both goals.
But I just wanted to talk about that, because I think like those words that I mentioned that Kane said when he was giving his like dying speech about how he didn't know if he was Kane anymore, like I think that pretty much captured it. Like everything in the Shimmer was everything else. Like it was all the same, right? Like everything is now like reflecting.
You're saying that everything is, it's kind of like everything is within everything in a sense. So
Yeah, at least within
so
the shimmer, right? So like
yes, yeah,
him, like Kane DNA is in everything that, or lots of things that are in the shimmer, right?
yeah. Just like Tessa Thompson becomes a plant, right? The DNA of the plant started to become a part of her,
Right.
and vice
Right.
versa,
Yeah.
right?
And I think what
Yes.
it's like, I don't know if the film is intending to say this, but I feel like it is kind of saying this subconsciously, which is that like
Hmm.
the like we're all just made up of cells, right? Like identity is totally like fabricated, at
Hmm.
least physically, right? You know, like
Physically, yes, but mentally, I think what it did is it further emphasized their identities, their core identities.
yeah.
I really think that's what it did as
Yeah, I
well.
guess, but I remember at the beginning when she's giving that lecture and she says something like two cells become four, four becomes eight, right? And she's giving that lecture and she says that so therefore all cells originated from one cell at the beginning.
So
And
are
I
you
just thought
saying
that was interesting to think about that, like
that everything in the shimmer was actually the same?
so even though we're all individuals in everything
We're all
on
really
earth, we
based off
all
of
are the
one.
same. We're all the same, right?
Mm.
Both physically and mentally. Even though we're different, we're the same. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, no, yeah, of course. I mean, I totally get that. Right, like a lack of kind of individual identity.
yeah.
It's kind of something that became more
Mhm.
obvious or pertinent as yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And I mean, this
100%.
could go into like tons of like pop culture discussions too, in terms of like,
Mhm.
because individualism is like a huge theme in like, especially in American culture,
Mm.
as opposed to like, I don't know, some European or Asian countries, it's a lot more about the community and stuff.
Mm.
So, um, yeah, I mean, obviously it doesn't have anything specifically to say about that, but there's that theme of like being of oneness and like identity or like separateness that this film covers, which I think was really interesting, you know.
Yeah, no, I thought it was really interesting as well. I mean, there were a lot of good things. What I like about movies like this, and we can kind of wrap this up and give our final thoughts here, but
Yeah.
I like about movies like this is there's multiple themes, right, that you can take away depending on your mindset or what you notice or don't notice. Like, and it still works for each individual person, right? Because I feel
Yeah.
like you and I had similar kind of takeaways, but also a little bit different. Um,
Yeah.
which
And I don't think it was and I
I,
don't think it was that there was too much going on either, right? Like there's some movies
Mhm.
like for example, I mean, this is just my perspective,
Yeah,
but
of course. Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen the movie Us. Have you seen that movie?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, I feel like that one takes on a little bit too many themes and it tries to explore too many topics at one time whereas this one
Mm,
I felt like um even
possibly.
though there are a lot of takeaways, it was still a very unified story with a direction and it just happened to come across all these themes because that's part of human nature in this
Yes.
film, you know.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, a lot of these themes were realized by the people who produced this movie, clearly. And I think it was very interesting because, depending on who you are, you could have a very different perspective,
Yeah.
and takeaway. So I thought that was really interesting. But
Hmm.
I don't know. I mean, we don't really have. I mean, I can give a rating, I suppose, on this movie. I'd like to give.
Yeah, yeah, go ahead. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
I mean, I'd like to give it like probably a 93 or 94. I mean, I
Mm.
really do enjoy this movie. I think maybe if there's there were a couple things that we mentioned that were kind of a little cheesy. There's always a moment or two that you have in kind
Yeah,
of
like a little
sci-fi
bit at
movies
the
like this.
end with Ventress and yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, there's a couple moments that you can kind of point to, but really nothing major. Or maybe like that bear that kind of like literally was on top of them and didn't eat them. That was a little weird,
Yeah, I agree with
but
that
like
as
you
well.
can explain it away, I guess, if you really wanted to. They just you
Hmm.
kind of assume that the bear couldn't see them. I don't really know. That was kind of my assumption. But anyway, there's a few things that are a little can be picky, or maybe it's like a little slow. But I thought it had a pretty good pace the whole way through. So yeah, I'll give it a 93 or 94. I think this is a really solid movie that made you think, but it wasn't. You didn't have to overthink, which I
Yeah.
liked about it.
Yeah. I agree with a lot of what you said. Yeah, when I first saw the movie, I thought that I actually liked it a little bit better the second time. When I first saw it, like
Mm,
those cheesy parts really stood out to me, like especially the bear scene and then like the end when she like meets like the shimmer itself, I guess.
sure.
And I think that those maybe put me off a little bit more than you, but I still thought it was really good, and I really like the way the plot and like the way it was explored. I did think it was a little bit slow at times,
Mm,
but yeah, overall, I really enjoy. watching this movie, and it's not something I would watch every day, but I'd like to come back to it in a couple years, maybe with someone who hasn't seen it and watch it with them and see
Yeah.
what they think about it.
Hmm.
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to mention is like I thought that the movie was like the way that they laid it out in terms of flash forwards, flashbacks, and then like present time was okay. Like I thought that that was pretty well utilized, but I would have liked to see perhaps a little bit different editing. Like if they showed to reveal information to us in a little bit different of, I'm not exactly sure how, but if they rearranged the scenes a little bit, I would have liked to have seen if that would have made the movie more engaging in terms of like pacing and stuff like that too.
Sure. Yeah, that would have been interesting because it was, I mean, sometimes it was kind of, I don't know, kind of, what do you think? It was kind of jarring, like moving around in the scenes like
Or
that?
not necessarily jarring, but like I feel like sometimes maybe I got information given to me a little bit too early, and I think it would have been a little bit like
Sure.
more handy to like hold on to that information and be like make the audience want a little bit more.
Yeah.
So just maybe like rearranging some of the flashbacks, flash forwards where they appear in the movie. I think that would have been maybe effective. I don't know for sure unless I would see it, but yeah,
Yeah.
I'm gonna go ahead and go for a high B with an 88 because I really like the movie. But there are a few things that I would change if I could like give them feedback and have them.
No, yeah, definitely. I mean, I think we both thought it was a really solid movie. I just, I've said it before and I'll say it one more time. I just really enjoy movies that allow you to come away with a lot of like overarching themes.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Just let you think about stuff like that. So
yeah, and I'm sure we could talk about this movie for a lot more time, but I think we said a lot of we said a lot of important things, and I think that
yeah,
movies like this lend themselves to being talked about. So that's
yes, fun. Movies like this allow you to have and almost not endless, but near endless discussion about themselves, which shows that I think they're a very solid movie. But Connor, with that, I think that just about does it.
Yeah, we can wrap it up. We've been talking for a while.
We have been talking for quite a while. I hope anyone who's watched this movie or anyone who watches this podcast didn't get
thanks for sticking around.
Too bored. Yeah, I appreciate it. I mean, we found this movie very interesting and very engaging, and I hope you guys did as well. If you've watched it, let us know what you think. And we'll be back next week with a movie of Connor's choice. He's yet to decide. I took a few days. He'll take a few days, and we'll figure it out. Hopefully, it's going to be a good one. But with that, we'll be back next week.
We will see you next week. Yeah.
Yep. We'll be back with another podcast next week. We'll see you guys later.